It's for people who are not in a relationship, who want to really, literally love thyself. And there's a wonderful show called Celebrate You with Barbara and Luana Bradford, Barbara J. Beckley and Luana Bradford, who are hosting that show, and it's talking about loving yourself. So yesterday, if you weren't in a relationship or you're not in a relationship and you were by yourself, you weren't by yourself. You were celebrating Quirky Alone Day. New holiday, literally, is an international day. Now, I say that and with that, you literally remember how the old check boxes, will you go with me? So you could say single, taken, or you were building an empire, finding yourself, healing yourself, loving yourself, being passionate, so forth and so on. That's what you were doing yesterday. If you were just with you, not even by yourself, with you. So let's get that out the way. I always had a problem with Valentine's Day. Now, before I start getting Instagrams like, well, what's wrong with Valentine's Day? There's nothing wrong with Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is a wonderful holiday. In fact, Valentine's Day has literally been around since the 5th century. Yes, the 5th century. It didn't they celebrated the day because there was actually a gentleman named Saint Valentine's. And as I told you last show, what he did was the Roman emperor at that time, the Caesar, had declared that he didn't want anyone married. So Saint Valentine, or Valentine, who was a monk, he decided to just marry people on the side. And he got in trouble, and of course, he didn't make it. But then it wasn't until the 14th century that they made Valentine's Day into this romantic holiday. So Valentine's Day has been around for a long time. It's not a hallmark holiday. So that's not the problem I have with it. The problem I have with it is that we celebrate this one day. We go out and we spend all kinds of money and things of this, and flowers and outfits and shoes and hair and restaurants and things of this. And my question has always been, what about the other 364 days? I remember asking my father that I was maybe 8, 9 years old, because my father would go out. Part of who I am is because my father was very romantic, rings and flowers and things of this. And my mother would be so happy on Valentine's Day. But the next day or soon after, my mother would be unhappy again. And the reason why I knew she was unhappy, because whatever happened with my father, it would come back on me ultimately. So I remember asking my father in the car one day saying, Dad, I used to call him Phil. It was my stepfather. Phil, why are you so good on Valentine's Day? And yet, what about the other days? And of course, he told me, boy, just shut up. So when I was thinking about Valentine's Day, as I always think about how much money, how much time, effort is spent. Americans spent $21.8 billion on just yesterday. Men spent 11.4 billion. Women spent about 7 billion, 7.8 billion. So $3.6 billion less than men, as it should be. And they're predicting that in 2023 that there will be an increase of spending 43%, 43.74%. But yet, when you look at Valentine's Day, when you look at the situation, the conditions of relationships in this, at least in this country, 6 out of 10 of us are unhappily coupled. I love the way they said that. Not unhappily married, but unhappily coupled. So what that means is, since Valentine's Day yesterday is probably one of the biggest, well, other than Christmas, one of the biggest holidays in the year, especially for restaurants, for Victoria's Secret stores, and also for the jewelry industry. Yesterday was Christmas 1, part 1. So what that means is that, and a lot of people get married on or get engaged on Valentine's Day. And I've been doing this industry for a long time. It's amazing how much business picks up during Valentine's Day. So what happens is people will come to me and thousands of jewelry stores all over America, and they would want to, this is obviously the Tiffany box. And they would go in there and they would know exactly what they want or have an idea. And it's always funny because you would have people walk in and say, I just want something little. And I always smile because I want to see how that evolves. So I can't tell you how many women would come in, well, couples would come in, and the woman would say, the guy would say, "What do you want, honey?" And the woman says, "Oh, sweetie, I just love you. I just want something. I just want something little." And it might start out with just maybe, 3/4 of a carrot, 1 carrot, but then it usually goes from there. So what always got me was they spend so much time on getting the jewelry. After a while, you got to worry about it went from just the white gold to or yellow gold to white gold to platinum. Then you want gemstones on the side. You want the center stone. You want 1 carat goes to 2 carats to 3 carats, and then it's like in the back of your head, you start to understand once you start seeing these two people together, they're not gonna make it. And you're thinking this as they're saying this, at least I was just saying, go make it. Because you could just see the exchange between the two of them. You're like, okay. Nobody was talking about the marriage. They were talking about the ring. So what I always thought was, what about the next day? That there is more value, those relationships that I saw over the years, there were more value in the ring than there was in the relationship. And that's strange to me because 60%, 60% of relationships, people who start out today, or at least yesterday, 60% of them won't make it. And in the industry, I can't tell you how many women that I have seen in my life who are unhappy, who are just unhappy. That those television shows I saw as a kid where the woman is just, "Oh, Charlie, yes, Joan, I love you." That doesn't happen. 60%. And and it was always just weird to me. And I always wanted to say something about it, but I didn't know how to say it because, if you say something about relationships, "Oh, you're not an expert. How do you know?" And I'm not an expert. But as I began to study gemology, I began to realize that it was strange that so much emphasis was put on the ring or the bracelet or the necklace and not the relationship. Where it's different in the gemology world. When I look at a piece of jewelry, it's different. The value, they both understand. All of us, all parties involved, understand the value. So I started thinking, what if? And I don't even know what year. It was probably 2010, 2011. I started studying gemology in 2004, but it was about 2010, 2011 when I started saying, what if? What if people looked at their relationships in the same way that you look at gemology? That if every person, man and woman, looked at their relationship, their love affair, their romance in the same way that a gemologist looks at a piece of. And again, let me say to my LGBTQ plus community, everything that I'm saying today, when I'm talking about women, just fill in the blank, whatever fits for you, right? Because this works both ways. There's no such thing as a female gemstone and a male gemstone. It's just that for me, gemstones are primarily female. You can see it much easier. So that's what I'm going with. So as I talk about every week, and I've been doing this show for 3 years now, over 3 years, that the one thing that I need for you to understand is that nothing has value without a story. Nothing has value without a story. Understand that. Write that in your notebook somewhere. If you keep notes of this class, write that down. That is the key point of this whole show. So what it means is that when you look at amethyst, the reason why you know what amethyst is, the reason you appreciate it, the reason why so many of you who are watching the show know what amethyst is because of the story and because you know of that story. You understand the value of it. So today, what we're going to talk about is romancing the stone, a gemmological guide to romance. A gemmological guide to romance. See, if I just said this, just Barry Mixon, people would be like, boy, he don't know anything. Yes, it's true. I've been married pretty much 3 times, twice legally, once long-term relationships. I've been in lots of relationships. And so I'm talking about romance from a gemmological point of view. And you see if that makes sense to you. Please comment, please leave messages because I learn all the time. So especially the ladies, see if this resonates with you, what I'm about to say today. So the Gemmological Guide to Romance. Romance is really, I'm going to say this, romance is not that hard. There's lots of women out here just shaking their head. It's really not. It's not that hard. You just have to. So I'm telling you, ladies, but for the guys who are watching this program, let me break it down to you. And those of you, even ladies, who don't understand romance, it's not that hard. And if you follow this, perhaps you can help your partner become more romantic. So I'm going to give you this in 4 steps, but I'm going to cover everything today because this is really huge. This is the key thing of what gemology is to me. Yes, the jewelry and the earrings and everything, but to me, gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry have a higher purpose. They're a template for what we can do in our own lives. So 4 steps. First step is step 1. Step 1 is observation. Step 2, gem identification. Put an asterisk next to gem identification because that's the key thing. Gem identification. And I've said this to you many, many times. You got to understand what something is. Then step 3 is the appraisal, is the story. An appraisal, a gemmological appraisal, a jewelry appraisal is basically a story. And then step 4 is the evaluation, is what the value is. So write that down. Right? That's what. Now, observation. Step 1. When you first see a piece of jewelry, what you're excited about. That's what Valentine's Day is. Valentine's Day is that feeling that you get on that day. You know, the ladies, you went out and you got your hair done, your makeup, your nails, your everything. You found the right dress because you knew that Steve is going to take you to a wonderful restaurant. You're going to sit there, and all of a sudden, the food tastes different. The ambiance is going to be magnifique. You're going to hear music. You can go home and the rest. That's what. So when you see a piece of jewelry, that's how you feel. You feel that sensation. You see that, and basically Valentine's Day is that simple. That it's the basic element of what it is. It's going way back. Remember when you were a kid and that boy liked you in school? He sent you a little note. Will you go out with me? Yes, no, or maybe. Quick story to that. First time I experienced that, there was this girl in my, maybe I guess I was in 7th grade, and we went on a class trip on Valentine's Day. And there was this girl that I absolutely just thought she was just gorgeous. Her name was Esmeralda. And Esmeralda was just, to me, just the sun and the moon rose and set on her. And I spent the whole entire day on this field trip. We went to a dude ranch with the horses and everything else. And I spent the whole entire day thinking, what was I going to say? I was going to ask Esmeralda out. Will you go with me? Yes or no? I had this note or something like this in my bag. And I'm thinking, how am I going to talk to her? How am I going to talk to her? And she was just being just like an angel from heaven, floating around, riding the horses, everything else. And all I saw was her. So we got home that night. We took a bus, little yellow school bus, and we got home. And Esmeralda and I got off at the same stop. And so here I am. Yeah, and Esmeralda, she's looking at me, and she liked it. We were friends. And she looked at me and she says, okay, Barry, I'll talk to you later. And I said, Esmeralda, I got one question to ask you. And I'm thinking, and it's like you can hear the music rising up. And I said, I looked her into her big, beautiful hazel eyes, and I said, will you go with me? And I had thought of all the possible responses that she would give me. No, of course, yes, maybe something. Well, she said something that I wasn't prepared for. She said, "Yeah, Barry, where you want to go? Go what you wear." I know some of you are laughing. Yeah, I was thunderstruck. I didn't expect that response. So I was like, "Nowhere, it's okay." And I don't even know what happened after that. It was just I was just messed up. So that's what Valentine's Day is. Valentine's Day is when you first see this ring. I have a client right now. When she saw this ring, she was just like, she was already giving me her finger size. Like, oh, I wear 6.5. I'm like, okay, that's nice. So that's what Valentine's Day is. That initial surge of adrenaline. That just when you see something, you just go, ah. Some of you are saying that right now, seeing this ring. This is a spectacular ring. Oh my God. All right. So that's what that, and this is another one. Look at the color. Look at the color of this amethyst and diamond in a platinum setting. White gold, actually, it's a white gold setting. That's what you see. That's the initial. That's when you went out yesterday, ladies, gentlemen, when you went out with your husband, your wife, your partner, you saw them like this. They were dressed, they were clean. I mean, Valentine's Day is usually a day I take a bath, whether I need it or not. Just trying to save the earth, but you're cleaned up, you got everything together. That's what you see. That's what is presented to you, the observation. But you don't know what it is. You went out with this gentleman, you went out with this woman, and this woman is just fine. Oh my God, and you're so proud to walk with her. But you don't know really what he or she is. All you know is that he is handsome. She is gorgeous and sexy and fine. And when she gets up to go to the bathroom, you just look at, like, remember the old song, "The Girl from Ipanema"? That's how you respond. Just that's what step one is. That observation, seeing and being enchanted by that piece of jewelry, by that gemstone. Step two, and this is the most important step, ladies and gentlemen. Step two is gem identification. This is where, if you don't hear anything else I say other than nothing has value without a story, gem identification. See, this is where the 60% comes in. People mess up here. When you're a gemologist, this is the hardest part, whole program. Understanding what something is, because I told you many, many times, just because it's red doesn't mean it's a ruby. Just because it's a yellow metal doesn't mean it is gold. So 60% of people, I believe, the reason why relationships don't work out is because they didn't do gem identification. They don't really know what they was or with. And again, this program, and we're going to continue on. This is just the first day. You're going to realize that when you understand romance from a gemmological point of view, it doesn't make anybody bad. Let me say that again. When you understand romance and relationships from a gemmological point of view, there's no such thing as something or someone is bad. They just wasn't what you thought they were. Those of you who have watched my program know that I've talked about my ex-girlfriends, ex-wives in a loving way, because when I first saw her, when I first saw my second one, Karen, when I first saw her, it was just like, oh, I mean, I just felt like, thank you. I remember thinking, thank you, God. But I found out that what she is wasn't what I wanted. I thought she was an emerald. She wasn't. She was something else. Tanzanite. Savarite garnet, which is also green. It's a beautiful green, but it's not a emerald. So take this down. And I said this from literally day one, that there are 4 characteristics that make a gemstone a gemstone. Any gem material, there's 4 characteristics, 4 attributes that it has to have: rarity, beauty, desirability, and durability. And What I'm going to show you today and moving on, every other week, we're going to talk about some aspect of it because it's really just that deep. Today, we're just going to really deal with probably rarity, maybe get into beauty. Rarity, beauty, rarity, beauty, desirability, durability. And what you're going to realize today, the day after Valentine's Day, this is how you're going to keep your relationship. Whatever you felt last night, when you were sitting there with that cigarette mouth, talking about, man, that was, whoo, how do you keep that? When you understand what you are dealing with, what that especially for the guys, when you understand that your woman is a gemstone, when you understand that there is a direct correlation between gemstones and people, your whole life will change. Your whole life will change. And I believe that I'm 62 years old, and people say, "Oh, you don't look 62," because I don't have the stresses that I used to have in my life, especially in relationships. And I'm not even talking about just romantic relationships, just relationships. Is understanding and seeing people in a similar way that I would see a gemstone. I don't have that stress. When I see somebody there, I'm just going like, "Oh, okay," because there's something in there that I didn't see, or I'm just recognizing. So let's deal with rarity. Right? Rarity. This I told you last week's, this is February. This is the month of amethyst. Amethyst, this is it. And I told you the history where amethyst comes from, things that, but what I also told you is that amethyst is what? Sand. Sand. Silicon dioxide. Every time you have been on a beach, you've seen a beach, you've seen movies of a beach, you have one of those souvenir jars with sand in it, that's silicon dioxide. That's what an amethyst is. So amethyst is rare. Amethyst is a rare gemstone. It doesn't start out like this it starts out like the way you see the gemstones behind the cut and polished amethyst. That's how amethyst starts out. That it's quartz, a very basic element. Silicon dioxide, two of the most abundant elements. One, two, oxygen, silicon, most abundant elements in the whole on Earth. That's what it is. So before you get to, you have to understand what it is. And I told you last week that not only is amethyst rare, amethyst was so rare at one point in time, amethyst was considered to be a cardinal stone. Now, those you missed out last week, I said a cardinal stone, there used to be 5 of them: diamonds, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, and amethyst. Amethyst back in the day used to be the gemstone. In the Bible, I checked it out. In the Bible, not only is amethyst listed in the Bible, but amethyst is listed in the Bible 3 times. 3 times amethyst is listed in the Bible, in the Old and New Testament. I always give people a chance to wake up and pick themselves off the floor because they can't believe I'm talking about the Bible on my show. Yes, Marie. Amethyst, it came from the Old and the New Testament. Exodus, and Revelation. That's how powerful amethyst used to be. In fact, if you wore amethyst, you had to be royalty. You couldn't even wear the purple, more or less wear amethyst if you weren't a royal. Queen of Sweden. Today's work. Queen of Sweden. Amethyst. Look at the amethyst. Look at her earrings. Look at her tiara. Amethyst. Look at the size of it. Beautiful. Matching. The former queen. Not the former queen. She'll always be the queen. Queen Elizabeth II. Amethyst. Right? And you know that jewelry, she's gone, God rest her soul, but the jewelry is still there. So somebody in the royal family will be wearing that necklace, those earrings. Wow. Amethyst, the current queen of England, or queen consort, Camille. Amethyst. Voila. That's what amethyst is. That's what amethyst used to be. Just an exalted stone. When you had amethyst, you had arrived. because the common people didn't have amethyst. Half of them didn't even see it. It was just one of those mystical stones. But because amethyst was found in an abundance in Brazil, in Uruguay, it's not rare anymore. Amethyst is not rare. You see amethyst. In fact, when you first start gemology, the first thing you see is amethyst. Everybody got amethyst. And you go to this people watching this show right now. Ashley, one of my viewers, thank you, Ashley. She has amethyst in her house. I know she does. She's into gemstones. She's into metaphysics. Dr. Santi has amethyst. And I'll have I have to tell you a whole story about Dr. Santi. Oh my God, just an incredible human being. But Dr. Santi has tons of amethyst in her house. So because amethyst is no longer rare, it doesn't have the same value anymore. It's considered to be a semi-precious stone. And you got to think to yourself, how is it that a stone that used to be precious, that used to be one of the 5 cardinal stones, how did that stone that was only, King Tut had amethyst in his coffin. When they found King Tut's tomb, they found him with amethyst. All the Egyptian kings and queens, pharaohs and queens wore amethyst. The European, Napoleon had amethyst. Amethyst has been a part of the beginning parts of human history for up until the 1700s. Amethyst was rare. And once it became no longer rare, once there was abundance of it, it became semi-precious. Which means, when you think about it, which means that this ring, as breathtakingly beautiful as this ring is, this ring no longer has the same value. This ring is like, okay, this ring has a cheaper, less expensive cost to it because it's now considered semi-precious. That's what we do in relationships. That's what we do in a relationship. And let me go back to amethyst, because you understand the story of amethyst. I've had so many comments in the last week of so many people say, I want amethyst. I didn't know amethyst. Oh my God, amethyst is a beautiful stone. I love amethyst. Because you love amethyst because I told you a story. And because I told you a story, whether the story about amethyst, the name, or what it meant, or the relationship, or the healing powers of amethyst, all those things that I've told you in the last couple of weeks, because you understand the story of amethyst, it has value. It has value. So this stone, if you saw this stone walking down the street and you saw this stone there, because you understand what that stone is, you understand what that stone means. You're not talking the chemical composition is. You understand what that story is. That stone just laying there, uncut, you would understand that stone has value now and for forever. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how that relates to you and how does that relate to you in your relationship. I'll see you on the other side. Here's a gem bit. Unlike most precious and semi-precious gemstones whose value is determined by weight, amethyst value is determined by the vibrancy of its color. Boy, I sure wish that it related to everything. Discover the value of your story. All right, we're back. So, you understand. Let's do a quick review. So, amethyst that used to be considered a magnificently valued and precious stone, because of you found more of it, because it increased in abundancy, that now it's been reduced to being a semi-precious stone. Someone made that decision. And the question that I had was, who made that decision? Who made that decision? If Queen Elizabeth II and Queen Camille now are wearing amethyst, and if they can wear amethyst because they are royalty, because there is an expectation of what they should be wearing as queens, and that therefore that gemstone has value because, or they, that gemstone, those pieces of jewelry increased in value because they are queens and they wear it. How is that any different in a relationship? That's the part I have problem with Valentine's Day. You went out, guys, you went out and you spent X amount of dollars on flowers that you could have gotten the week before or 2 weeks before for half the price. You went through an expensive dinner and you did all these wonderful things for a woman that you love, because that woman just, oh, that woman just makes your liver quiver. That's an old, okay, that woman just makes your heart beat. Now she is like a fever from which I shall never recover. That's how you felt last night. So the question is, does she lose value later on? She is rare. She is rare. Let's just really put it down basic. If there are 8, this is where the paradigm shift. Remember when I was in France, when we were talking about the paradigm shift, that everyone is thinking this way. That's what a paradigm is. It's a model. It's a direction that everybody's going. The paradigm shift is when you say to yourself, wait a minute, hold on a second. So we're going to do a paradigm shift right now. There are 8 billion people on the planet Earth. 8 billion people on the planet Earth. And you found someone that loves you. You found someone who is willing to put up with you. You found someone, and this is whether you're in a committed relationship, whether you're married, whether y'all just kicking it. You found someone who wants to be with you. Take a second to think about how rare that is. Especially if you are older and you've been through a few relationships, you've been divorced, you've been divorced a couple of times. You should understand, we all should understand what value is, what rarity is, because we should understand that of the 8 billion people on the planet, there's so few. It's so rare to find somebody who loves you. And that's the part. I'm not upset. I'm not upset that my ex-wives or ex-girlfriends, we didn't make it. I'm not upset. I possibly didn't see their value and they didn't possibly see my value. But when we were together, when I met her, when I have been with her, whether I saw them, I remember every relationship I've ever been with, where I first met them. I remember, being at train stations or plane stations and just standing there and you just say, oh. I remember being on a bus or on a train, and you guys can remember, think for a second about where you were when you met that person. Think about where you were when you decide last night, the way you were when you first met that person, and last night, Valentine's Day, was the beginning of your relationship, of your love affair. Some of you, last night will be the story that you will tell your kids and your kids' kids. Man, I met your father. Oh, he was this. Everyone has that story. But the key thing that people don't understand and get is they don't understand how rare that is. How rare that is. When you're in a relationship, when you find the one, remember we talked about the one. We don't talk about it as we used to. Remember, the one is somebody who's down for you. The one is somebody who deals with the fact that your feet stink, or you don't know how to cook, or you're not a good driver. That's rare. Somehow in the whole universe, 8 billion people, you found someone who loves you. There's people who wear makeup, and there's people who don't wear makeup. There's people who like a certain size or shape, and there's some people who may not like that. If Rihanna was on the Super Bowl, and there were people who loved her show, and there were some people that said, "Nah." But the people who loved her show or Beyonce show, there's no talking to them. They understand how rare that woman is, and not because she's a star, but because whoever is with them understands that that person is there for a specific reason. And if you are in a relationship that has lasted a considerable amount of time, you have to keep thinking to yourself that that is rare. Just like that gemstone that you have in your hand is rare. Not because not just because it all the things that have to come together to create amethyst. Amethyst is what? Iron. It's silicon dioxide with just a hint of iron. Isn't that what your relationship is? Isn't that what the person that you love? Isn't that what the woman that you love? Isn't that what she is? She is a human being, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, hair. She has a certain height. She has a certain weight. She has a certain color. And all those things, she went to certain schools. She learned different things. There's different attributes that's inside of her. And she decided to deal with you. And when I say you, I'm thinking about me. I know I'm special. I am. I have all kinds of little quirks. You have to understand when you're with someone, you have to take in who they are. You have to love them for who they are, not just for that day, but all the time. Think about it. When you have an amethyst ring, you don't just find the ring, you bought the ring, you love the ring, you wore the ring, and somehow you misplaced the ring. You put it in the back of the jewelry case, or it fell in between the closet, in between the carpet, or the couch. And when you find that ring again, you look at that ring and go, oh my God. Oh, and all the feelings, all the emotions of that ring, the story of that ring comes flooding back. That's what Valentine's Day is. Valentine's Day is really an appraisal. It's a yearly appraisal of what you got, of what you have. And when you look at it from a gemmological point of view, that this woman, that this man has been with you for X amount of years, X amount of months, X amount of you have been with this person, you have slept with this person, you've held hands, you have gone through the ups and downs. You have to understand that that person is rare. And if you understand that, then romance, because you understand, you appreciate the rarity of it. You appreciate what that person is. Remember the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith? I love that movie. That was the movie with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And of course, it was a Hollywood movie and everything else. And the whole script was she was a secret agent, an assassin, actually. He was an assassin. And they played for 2 different teams, 2 different companies. And they were both excellent at the craft. And they fought, and they hid who they were from each other in their relationship, in their marriage. And they were going to counseling because neither one of them could really say who they are. Think about it. Neither one of them could really say who they were. So, gem identification. They didn't know each other. They didn't understand who they were. So they was going to therapy, and they were talking, as I think her name was Jane and his name was John. Basic. And John knew that she was into doing drapes and keeping the household together. And John was a good-looking man, and Angelina Jolie was beautiful and elegant and everything else. And she did all the things around the house. And John was a handsome man, talented, and all this other stuff. He went on his business trips and things, but they didn't know who they were. And that's what the movie Traveler, discovering of who they are, discovering the value of their story. So then when you get in the movie further on towards the end, I love the last scene. To me, the last scene of Mr. and Mrs. Smith was the one of the most romantically was the most romantic action scene I've ever seen in the movies. They watched that scene, the way they worked together. When they discovered who they were, not only just within inside themselves, when they understood who they were for each other, it was breathtaking. Of course, it was all choreographed. Even look at this scene. Look at the way she's holding the gun and he's holding the bottom of the gun, exchanging. Do you see when the gun is pulled back like that? The receiver, that means is you ran out of bullets. He's reloading the gun as she's shooting the gun. That's rare. That's rare. Yeah, that's Hollywood, but think about it in your life. How rare is it to find someone like that? To find someone who understands what you like to do, understands how special it is that I have a woman in my life who says, "Baby, you want something to eat?" What? What? Who you got a woman in your life that says, "Yeah, baby, go ahead and go to school. I got your back." Who takes care of your kids? Ladies, how rare is it to find a man who wants to go to work? That says, "Baby, this is what we're going to do. Let me provide a safe place for you to be. See you as beautiful. Let me be." How rare is it to find a man that says, "Yes, you are exercise." And even though the whole rest of the world may say you're too fat, you're too short, you're too skinny, you're too tall, you're too this, you're too that, you're too this, you're too this, you found someone that when it really comes down to it, that's what you're down for. That someone that loves you so much that you can be down to your skivvies, to your underwear, house blown up. And there you are, Batman and Robin, the Long Ranger and Tonto, the Green Hornet and Kato. And the only thing that you guys decide in this relationship is who's going to be Batman one day. Is Batman in charge or is Batwoman in charge? Is Superwoman or Supergirl in charge or Superman? And you have that whole symphony. That's what jewelry is. That's what a gemstone is. It's a symphony. How is that any different in your relationship? Let's look at it. Something, let's side by side comparison. Here's amethyst. Amethyst is there's billions and billions and trillions of grains of sand. Somehow those sands came together with a hint of iron and created amethyst. Created this beautiful gemstone that we call amethyst. Here you are in a relationship, male or female. I'll just say I'm a man. I find a woman. I see a woman. I discover a woman who, when I see her, I see the light. I see how the light, how her education, her training, the things that she's gone through, the experiences that she's learned in her life, all those things had to come together. And for one brief shining moment, once upon a time, she decided, for whatever reason, to love me, to love you. When a woman says that I love you, and it's not that men don't, but when a woman says that I love you, oh man, that's a soul thing. That's a soul thing. That's like amethyst cannot be anything else. When you put silicon dioxide with a hint of iron in it, what you get is the purple variety of quartz. There's lots of quartz. There's lots of different types of quartz. But if you're talking about amethyst, you're talking about something rare. And because you understand what it took to create that story, you understand its value. You understand that? Remember, I mean, think about it. Look at them. Remember that those of you who didn't see this movie, at the end of the movie, towards the last final scenes in the movie, they are both assassins. They worked for different teams. And the two companies that they worked for didn't like that she was married to him and he was married to her. So literally the whole entire assassin community was after them. They were cornered in this department store and they fought together. They fought together. That's rare. That's rare. And those of you who have been married for a long time understand that that's rare. That's what Valentine's Day really is. Valentine's Day is a day for you to reassess, to sit down, and I don't care if it's an expensive restaurant, I don't care if it's a coffee table in the middle of your house. Valentine's Day is a day that shouldn't just be celebrated on February 14th. It should be celebrated every day, just like you would a gemstone. That ring that you found or rediscovered that was behind the couch, or because the dog took it and hid it somewhere, and you found that ring again, what would be your reaction? My ring! Oh my God, I found my ring. Those of you who have lost engagement rings or wedding rings understand that void that you feel because of what that ring meant to you. What's the void that you feel when that person is not in your life? And it's not that they make you happy, they enhance, just like gemstones, they enhance your life. So what this whole program is about is looking at your relationship in the same way you look at a gemstone. That's rare thing. And again, I'm just going over it. There'll be more. Keep coming back because there's more and more to this. There's so I can do day. There's so many different analogies. But let's move on with the next one. You understand the story. You understand the story of that person that you're with. It's not the cookies and the cakes and the flowers and the restaurant and the outfits and the romantic hotel you found. It's the story. You don't like amethyst. You don't go to a store and go, excuse me, I like a set of silicon dioxide earrings with a wonderful silicon dioxide necklace. No. You look for something. You love the color purple. You love the way it makes you feel. You love the way it reflects off of you. You love the way it enhances you as a person. You love the way it feels when that jewelry lays on your skin. Isn't that what romance is? Isn't that what loving that person in your life? Or let's take it. Isn't that what loving yourself is? Let's take a second to celebrate Quirky Alone Day. If you were by yourself yesterday, you weren't self. You were just an amethyst. You were a solitaire. You were by yourself. How many people love solitude? Why? Because the stone alone needs nothing else. Basic setting. That's all you need. Because that stone, you understand what that stone means. You understand how that stone interacts with the light, and it does something for you. Now take a look in your mirror. Take a look in the mirror and understand. I'm not talking hocus pocus. I'm talking about there's 8 billion people on the planet. 8 billion people on the planet. And yet there's only one of that person you're looking at in the mirror. That's rare. And because you understand the story, you understand value. That's what Valentine's Day is about. Even go back to the beginning. Valentine's Day was the day when the gentleman, the monk named Valentine, he was imprisoned He was in prison. He knew he was going to die. Claudius the first was the emperor, and he arrested him, and he knew, Claudius killed whoever just because. And he knew he was going to die. And one of the stories, because there's actually a couple different stories with Valentine's Day, it's all really dealing with him being arrested and him being ultimately killed. But what he did on February 14th, there's two stories. One, he got killed he was executed on February 14th. And the other story is that one, he was executed, but he wrote a letter to himself and said, "Dear Valentine." And later on, that emotion, that day became what we celebrate as Valentine's Day. This man was ready to die, preparing to die, and he wrote a letter to himself. Next week, we'll talk about a wonderful documentary talking about diamonds. It's called Nothing Lasts Forever. It's on oh my God, I forgot the streaming network, Stars or something like this. Anyhow, it's about the difference between real and synthetic. And what we're talking about with that is that diamonds are no longer rare. Real diamonds are rare, but synthetic diamonds are everywhere. We're going to talk about rarity in a different point of view. And I'm going to have one of my wonderful viewers, Charlie Jones, is going to be on with me, and we're going to talk about rarity and blood diamonds and put that all together. But what I wanted you to get out of today is think about what you did last night. Think about what you did on Valentine's Day and see the rarity of that. See how fortunate yet you were, that you are, to not only to spend time with that other person, but to also think about how rare you are as a person. Think about everything that it took to make you who you are today, and love that. See the rarity in that. And when you do that, you have taken the first step of understanding the value of your story. So as always, my name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a Gemmological storyteller. And today, as always, your mission, your homework assignment is to begin to discover the value of not only your story, but someone else's story, that person that you were with. So until next week, au revoir, à te tella, voila. Amethyst literally means not drunk. And the ancient Greeks and Romans believed that by drinking out of amethyst cups or goblets, they wouldn't have to worry about being drunk. Kind of makes you wonder how that tradition lasted this long. Discover the value of your story. Nothing has value without a story. That is the essence of Professor Barry's Science Emporium. Ladies and gentlemen, science is all around us. It is in everything that your child does. It is in everything that your child wants to be. So what I do is take their stories and incorporate it into the stories of the lessons that I want to teach in science and history. And I guarantee that at the end of the lesson, your child will either love science or have a much greater appreciation for science and history, because they will come to realize, as thousands of children have come to realize all over the world, is that at Professor Barry's Science Emporium, everything is science. I hope I have the opportunity to work with your child. Professor Barry's Science Emporium, where everything is science.